battery episode done and I'm halfway through it, but last night Carinnna decided it was high time she revisited the environmental panel because it's been a while. She had a few things she needed to say to them. As many of you know, you have 3 minutes to have your say, then they give you your response, and then you get 1 minute to respond to their response. So it's normally done and dusted in about 7 minutes. So Carinnna managed to have her say in 1 minute 40, and then a rather large debate ensued, and the entire thing took 22 minutes. So I have edited down the debate that ensued, but I'm going to leave some quite big chunks in, just so you really get to see what both the members of the public and the councillors have to battle with these officers. One, getting through to them, and two, actually getting them to take action. May well make you want to lose the will to live, but please stay tuned to Carinnna's response. They gave her extra time, and boy did she make good use of it.
Good evening. Last March, concerned members of the public attended the Environment and Sustainability meeting to question Council's spending on costly, environmentally disastrous technologies that are promoted within the Green Agenda. Evidence was provided of horrific environmental pollution from lithium mining. How is continuing with EVs a strategy for helping the planet? The explosive nature and regularity of lithium battery fires and the vast amount of water required to manage them, as well as toxicity of the fumes and water runoff, requires carefully considered safety protocols. Why is Council ignoring the public request for safety plans with regards to e-bikes and e-scooters? Why is Council content to declare a climate emergency in the absence of robust evidence or any defining parameters? What evidence do you have that you're saving the planet? How can you justify contamination of water supply for 300 years in your efforts to reduce CO2? Is the risk of toxic hazard to our community, the toxic manufacturing processes and the recycling challenges, as well as the death of children, unimportant enough for Council to feel able to ignore? One of the questions asked in the past was, who would be responsible? Can we have a name, please, for those that would be responsible? Otherwise, we'd have to assume that everyone who's continuing to support this is responsible for any litigation that may come from the lack of safety around these. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms Cooper. I'm going to turn to the officers to give you a fuller response. Just like to say, yourself and your colleague Ms Matthews have previously addressed the panel, and we've now arranged to go and do a fact-finding mission to establish for ourselves what is the life cycle in terms of the lithium batteries and the other items. So we haven't been able to do that until tomorrow due to various diaries, but that is going to be happening. So there will be some follow-up coming in terms of email correspondence after tomorrow, but I'd like to turn over to Mel if that's okay.
So at this point, I would just reiterate that you've had a comprehensive response to your previous inquiry and the questions that you've just raised, and my colleague has sent you comprehensive replies to each of the questions. We can send you a response again to the same questions. But at this stage, we don't have anything further to add because it feels like we're in a cycle of you asking the same questions and us responding.
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight and speaking. I just wanted to ask, please, I asked if we could have a beginning and an end on cabinet decisions. How far has that gone? Because what I wanted to ensure that when a decision is made by this council, that they actually have the full picture, that they get a description of where stuff that is in the batteries, the chemicals and whatever, how they are mined, where they've come from, and also what the how they biodegrade at the end, and how we recycle the item, whatever it is, at the end. How far has that gone, please? Because that was quite a few months ago.
Hi there, yeah. If I could just also add to this, it's a very complicated question. We do understand that there are serious issues around lithium mining, as there are around all forms of mining. However, we do have lithium in laptop batteries. We do have lithium in every standard car battery as well.
Now, I know virtually nothing about cars, but I was fairly sure normal, standard, everyday batteries don't contain lithium. But I did check. I phoned a friend, Jeff. who buys cars. Some of you may know him. And he said categorically, no, they don't. Now, he did go on to say that some luxury models do have a spare battery under the seat, which may well be lithium. But he said standard everyday cars. That is not correct. Also, Simon, I would like to draw your awareness to your favourite example. This is a lithium battery from a mobile phone, and it fits in the palm of my hand and weighs just a few grams. Unlike the lithium batteries that are in electric vehicles. They are enormous and can weigh over 60 kilos. Now, one could argue computers and phones are a necessary part of everyday life. When we have perfectly good cars whose emissions are getting better and lower every year as technology advances, we don't need to put vast amounts of lithium in a vehicle. Scooters and bicycles do function without a battery. Then it's just the metal that's been mined. And yes, he's correct when he says all mining is bad. It is. But lithium is particularly awful because of the sulfuric acid. Now, sometimes they leach it out with salter, which is obviously much better, but a lot of the times it is the sulfuric acid, which contaminates the water supply for over 300 years. How is that saving the planet? And then we get on to Carinnna's other point about the fire hazards. When an e-bike or scooter goes up, it has the explosive power of 6 hand grenades. The streets of Colchester are absolutely littered with these devices. And from the video footage many of us have seen, once these things start to smoke, you've got about 30 seconds to get out. I've no way of verifying this, but the report that came through at the time was there were passengers and the driver still on board. We don't want this in Colchester. We really don't. So how is any of this saving the planet?
This is a question that I think at a national issue we need to look at, but certainly with regards to EV vehicles, that's something we do take seriously and we will be looking at further.
It was about the full picture, regardless of what the product is, whether it is a laptop, whether it is a mobile phone, whether it is a car. And we've had a cabinet decision made on purchasing X number of vehicles. I have never seen a description of, and that comes, we know it has an end of life. What happens to that vehicle? In every decision that is made, that we have the full picture.
I think that's something that we can look at further. But we've also were asked this question previously last year about whole life costing, and it's something we have picked up with procurement. However, it does take an inordinate amount of resource to be able to do whole life costings of every purchasing decision the council makes.
Okay, this is Simon. You might remember him from the episode where he swore blind there weren't any questions in an email I'd sent him. So I then had to go through pointing out all the sentences with that little question mark thing on the end that are questions. It's the same person. Now, this shouldn't have been difficult for him because there weren't any questions. All Councillor Lissamore is asking is where does the thing come from and where does it go? And how is that affecting the planet? That's all she wants to know. It shouldn't be difficult. Why is this conversation going on for such a long time? And I've edited out most of it.
With respect, I think we need something in place so that we actually know where the stuff has come from in the first place and where it's going to go after its end of life.
No, I think you're absolutely spot on there, Councillor Lissamore, and thank you. Just listening to what you're articulating a bit more there, but it sounds like this is something that needs to come to full council potentially in the municipal year. You know, bring a motion that says we're going to factor life cycles into all of the decisions that we're making. So I think this potentially is something that needs the might of full council to then change our approach, but I'd welcome your views on that. And thanks for your patience, Ms Cooper. I'll give you a moment shortly.
I'm just a little disappointed because I can't remember how long ago we discussed this, but it must be...
This was a year ago today, 21st of March 2023, when you asked those questions.
Okay. So I'm just a bit disappointed that this hasn't been put forward to Cabinet before then. Has it just been forgotten since then?
So it's a purchasing policy. So it's not an after the fact. It's actually what you're asking for is a policy that before we procure and purchase items, there would be a criteria to consider about what the long-term impact of purchasing that is. I've understood your question. Thank you.
And if I could just add that under all decisions that the Council does make, there is a section within it under the environment and sustainability impacts of all decisions. So I would argue that we already have that policy and provision in place.
We must have an idea of what we're going to do with it at the end. Are we going to scrap it? Are we going to sell it? Are we going to sell it to another council? So I think having some statement in there when we make a purchasing decision as to what the anticipated solution at the end of it, quite reasonable, wouldn't it be?
So I think we're halfway there, but I get what the points that are being made this evening on all reports. So I think it's about accepting we have some of it there, we are much further forward.
That's great, thank you very much. Ms Cooper, the rules say I'm supposed to give you a minute, but in light of the amount of information that you've just heard, I'd like to extend it to 3 minutes if you do wish to respond.
Thank you. First of all, it's quite concerning with the obligation that council has to look at all evidence impartially, how we can get to the stage where no one knows about this until a member of public brings it forward. So, whatever you've been exposed to sounds like an echo chamber of people who support this, and obviously in certain job titles you're going to have to believe in that, and it's concerning that that information wasn't there already. If you are genuinely trying to save the planet, it's all about environment and sustainability, then why isn't this one of the primary considerations, the toxicity of procuring these minerals, etc. So that does seem quite hypocritical of the virtue signalling of the green agenda to not even have looked at, like you say, the toxicity in making it, the manufacturing and the recycling, which is all very difficult as well. Conversation on the ITs and the mobile phones is really deflecting from the issue we have, which was the EV procurement, the e-bikes and the e-scooters. Obviously, scale is the issue, and if you're going to be buying lots more, then this is all going to continue. It was a year ago when you mentioned that. I believe since then there's been 100 more e-bikes and e-scooters added. So if you are here serving the public, then why are you not listening to the public and acting on that? Can you recognise the disparity between a climate and emergency and the speed in which things are addressed through this council? We've had emails go missing. We've had a lack of responses. We don't get questions answered. And the lady who suggested that we've had lengthy answers, as I've said before, there's not a lot of substance in there. Please don't quote the IPCC, etc. We would like to have robust evidence. It's shocking how council's allowed to procure this without, like you say, having this information available. And it seems very much there's only one line of thinking that's allowed, and anything that doesn't agree with that is silenced. So I would just like to say you are obligated to look at all the evidence. Council admitted to not doing that. Council is now admitting to being ill-informed on the mining and the EV batteries and the recycling, etc., until the public brings it here. So if you truly are about environment and sustainability, can we have less polluting technologies moving forward and recognise that assumptions that you are basing your climate emergency on, the CO2 levels, is false? We've asked for a discussion around this to bring both sides of the argument. Again, there is deflection, and there's been no offer of any people we can communicate, your experts, who have the evidence that we can have a conversation with our experts. Really, we're after just finding the truth. I'm not about winning with whether there is or whether there isn't. There is climate change, of course there is. But what I'm finding is evidence being hidden and ignored in preference to serving the agenda and all the grants and money that comes in from following what is being pushed down, not serving the people coming up. Thank you.
Carinnna of Colchester is the undeniable queen of comebacks. She always does well in the extra minute, but those extra 3 minutes, I think she really shone. And as she put so beautifully, it's about looking at all the information. So we very much appreciate Councillor Nissen giving her that opportunity to voice everything that needed to be said, and also for being interested in hearing this net zero debate, because it is important. We've only heard one side of the argument. As an independent, Andrew Bridgen is now raising net zero debate in Parliament, and two of the experts that we put forward to come and speak at Colchester were in Parliament with him, giving information to the peers and members of Parliament and guests. So we haven't just picked a couple of random strangers off a bus to come and talk at Colchester. We've got UN-credentialed, very experienced climate scientists that are willing to give up their time and come and talk to our councillors and any member of the public who's interested to attend. On this subject, there are a couple of documentaries that have been made. One was released the other day, Climate the Movie. It's very good at showing what pressure is put on academics to agree with anthropogenic climate change. A shorter documentary that I really liked was A Climate Conversation. It comes at it from a more asking questions point of view, which I think is a little bit easier for people to take on board. Sadly, not all of the councillors have quite the helpful and open attitude of Councillor Nissen and Councillor Lissamore. Councillor Gocher from the Green Party decided he's fed up with hearing about the mining of lithium batteries and feels we should be focusing on all aspects, which, yes, he has a point, but specifically he's concerned about car tyres made by children in sweatshops. I must admit I didn't know about this dreadful occurrence. There's me thinking Michelin made their car tyres in precision factories with machinery. I didn't for 1 minute think it was children in sweatshops. Well, there we go. We can all learn something new each day, can't we? The reason we don't focus on car tyres, though, they don't tend to spontaneously catch fire and exploding with the force of hand grenades, killing people with toxic smoke. Now, I will get the Sudbury video done as soon as I'm able to. So until next time, take care.